It's time for a new arc on Foreplay. We are in our Cyberpunk arc right now, and that's going to start with the Cyberpunk classic Blade Runner. We're going to follow it up with the much less known Dark City, followed by The Matrix, and concluding with Strange Days. As we talked about in the end of our last episode on Hidden Gems, where we discussed Naked Lunch, the reason we picked these movies is they are kind of staples of the genre. The reason why we didn't pick some other movies that you might see here, especially, I think the anime fans will be clamoring for Akira or Ghost in the Shell, which definitely fall into this, is because we're probably going to do an anime movie arc down the road, and one or both of those will almost certainly be in that if we're doing kind of like classic anime. So we didn't want to necessarily pile them in right here. If you guys want a classic anime arc, I kind of do. We're probably going to chuck some more Satoshi Kon in there for sure also. But we will get around to that later. This arc, however, starting with Blade Runner 1982, this is one of the very first pieces of cyberpunk fiction to come out. Certainly, I think the most seminal one in terms of film. Also, we did talk about William Gibson, who's an author who wrote the book Neuromancer. Neuromancer is probably the foundational novel of cyberpunk. That actually came out in 1984, so it was post-Blade Runner, interestingly enough. Although I will say the reason why we think of it as kind of the quintessential cyberpunk work is because he actually coins the term cyberspace in there. Yeah. And very importantly at the time, so if you've ever heard the term cyberspace for the internet, he invented that in that novel, that word. And it was used because people were like traveling the internet in their mind, which was a pretty revolutionary concept for 1984. Gibson did it.
Also, remember, this is one of those ones where it's like, it's not an accident. The people who were the early nerds who made the internet and computer stuff were all influenced by these things. They were explicitly trying to make these things a reality.
Yeah, so let's talk about before we dive into Blade Runner, let's talk about what cyberpunk is as a genre. Because it's pretty, solidly rooted in the kind of late 70s through late 90s. Although, The Matrix was 99 to kind of like bleed into the early 2000s a little bit. But what this were people imagining, obviously, a future, but as opposed to other previous kind of writers or films imagining the future, this was very specifically kind of a hybrid of film noir. It was a lot of dark subject matter, revolutions or drug trips or, dangerous interactions with technology, pornography, a lot of transgressive themes. And it's kind of a criminal underworld that exists in a dystopian high-tech future.
I mean, key to cyberpunk, right? If you had to pick out the elements that make it distinct from any other genre of science fiction, first is its roots in noir. Obviously, we've talked about noir on this, in the past, but the
cyberpunk is also referred to as tech noir.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Exactly.
Again, it's the cop who's down on his luck, and it's the gritty and the grimy, and there's always the girl and the femme fatale. Yeah, it's all in that domain. It's like a futuristic version.
Yeah,
it's great.
And obviously as well. I mean, it's just got these like fantastical technological aspects that add to it. Very often a crime element to a lot of cyberpunk stories, like heists. The difference being, instead of going into a bank with a gun, you're downloading your consciousness onto a computer to steal a piece of data or whatever, But so that's essential. It has its roots in noir and like hard-boiled detective pulp kind of stuff. But equally as well, cyberpunk is very dystopian for all of the transhumanist aspects to it and all the fantastical technology. Ultimately, the governments are fascistic in cyberpunk. They control every aspect of your life. It's a runaway surveillance state very often.
There's often as well, it was one of the reasons why I say, to me, the most cyberpunk country, it's why I loved them, Monty, was South Korea.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just the neon lights and stuff, but it's the idea that these giant families, almost like the fucking Venetian, the Italian city-states, it's like corporations, our families are like the massive dominant factors. Yes. That's a massive component of this thinking and Blade Runner itself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And also, in the 80s too, cyberpunk was very explicitly inspired by Hong Kong in the 80s.
Oh.
And the reason why, and we see this in Blade Runner, is that there's this collision of East and West. And, Hong Kong is a very interesting city if you ever have a chance to go there, because it is simultaneously like has the trappings of the British Empire. You'll walk down the street and there will be a 2-story red British bus next to a skyscraper covered in bamboo while they work on it. It's a totally one of a kind city.
And it has that feel like you're saying it could at different time periods feel like they exist in one place.
Yeah.
I always said in China and Korea, you walk down a side street, you're going back like 100 years each side street. It feels like, and eventually I've always told the story. I once walked down one from a main street that was all shops and boutiques, and I went down 5 streets down the side, and a woman chopped the head off a fish on the road. And I went, where am I? What the fuck? A minute ago I thought I was in like New York a minute ago. What the fuck?
But
and also the aesthetic of Hong Kong, which is like the neon. If you've been to Hong Kong, very famous. Hong Kong's a city very famous for its neon lights, and the kind of combination of super cutting edge modern. And this also Hong Kong is kind of a let's just say not so savory things go on there a lot of the time, and there's hidden nooks to the city,
drugs, prostitution, everything.
So it was very, very much inspired by this era of like history and looking at that, which is why we do get to see like all of the Japanese with the Los Angeles, right, within Blade Runner.
Notice that's even an element of Cyberpunk too. It is sort of a post-capitalist idea of like a fucked up consumer world where everything can be gotten for the right price on the black market or from here or this place, but maybe there's legal difficulties to get it. There's all that. I mean, they have the thing where he's getting the eyes made in this movie, etc. Like, it's all swirling together.
Also, essentially, almost like a foreshadowing for globalization, where individual nationalistic culture is largely irrelevant in many ways, an affectation, but corporatism, brands, that's what prevails. And ultimately as well, like you say, everything is for sale if you've got the money. There was kind of like an interesting little drama that happened. I don't know if people remember this. It was about the Cyberpunk game. They advertised I think it's a soft drink in the game, and it has the phrase like mix it up. Because you can mix all of the flavors in the soft drink, but it's done with a very attractive woman with a very large penis bulging through her attire, through her clothes. And obviously the phrase mix it up, right? So it's talking about the blending of gender fluidity, transgenderism, and all this stuff that just wouldn't matter in a cyberpunk universe. This upset a lot of people because they didn't understand. They thought it was like a cheap chick with a dick joke. They didn't realize that in cyberpunk everything is for sale. It's a capitalistic extension. So, you wouldn't think anything special about the protected status of gender. You're just using it to sell a soft drink. It's exactly what would happen in a post-capitalist world. And I would wager a lot of the people that rage about capitalism are also incredibly supportive of the transgender movement, and yet they completely missed this in the game. And, credit to CD Projekt Red. They didn't cave on that and take it out. They explained what I'm explaining now quite explicitly, and the drama went away. I actually think...
Also funny, because I would argue the modern conception of identity, you could argue even is a capitalist consumerist fucking idea.
Agreed.
So you almost have to buy into their thinking to then say you're breaking out of it.
Yeah, and so I actually think, while I think Cyberpunk 2077 is not a good game, I think in terms of getting the ideas and the tangibility of what Cyberpunk is, I think it does a very good job in that regard.
It shows the lasting effects of Cyberpunks too. I mean, this is this genre has been extraordinarily influential.
Oh, for sure.
And one final thing I want to talk about real quick, because this is probably something you're not going to hear much elsewhere, is that one of the major inspiration points for Cyberpunk in Hong Kong was a place called Kowloon Walled City.
Yeah.
And Kowloon Walled City, by the way, is fascinating, and I am like obsessed with this place. So what it was in Hong Kong, there was a Chinese fort that over a period of like 100 years slowly became one of, if not the weirdest slums on earth. So it was a completely lawless domain governed mostly by organized crime. And what they did was they kept like building these concrete towers. So if you look up pictures, actually, Adanian, our editor, be so kind as to put some pictures of Kowloon Walled City in here. Because it basically just became this kind of like weird fortress monolith of apartment buildings that are all too close together. They were stealing electricity. There were tens of thousands of people that lived in this series. It was like a rat warren. And there was an entirely self-sufficient society of restaurants and hair salons. And if you guys want to see a video of it in real life, they actually filmed part of the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Bloodsport in the real Kowloon Walled City. It has now since been destroyed, guys. It was a nasty place, and they got rid of it. But the peak of Kowloon Walled City in terms of population was in the 1980s, and this kind of very weird, independent, lawless dystopia that's a nest of electrical cables and cobbled together technology where the poorest of the poor are just kind of like getting by and relying on the community to do so, is one of the core inspirations of cyberpunk. And if you're interested in a contemporary movie about this, there's a movie that was a Hong Kong movie that was released in 2024 called Twilight of the Warriors Walled In. That's like a wuxia hyper fantasy martial arts film about drug dealers in Kowloon Walled City. I'm not going to say it's a great movie, but it is really fucking cool if you like the 80s aesthetic and those kind of martial arts movies.
You want to know what's hilarious? When I was in Japan, I was over in Shibuya. And
the bar? Did you go to the bar?
Yeah, well, yeah, I won't say I stayed there too long. I rubbernecked it because I like looked it up. I was fucked up, man. I think I'd just come out a golden guy. I was absolutely fucking wrecked. But I heard about this place, and like apparently there's like a bar in fucking Shibuya that's based on the Kowloon fucking thing.
Yes, it's closed now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But there was in Japan a large bar that was a recreation of one of the
closed
from
last year or
Kowloon Walled
something,
City. Yeah, and I had never been there, but I've seen the pictures. And they recreated. They actually brought in like newspapers from the time and artifacts from the walled city that were signs, and they made like a facsimile of it, which was I'm jealous you went. I never went, but anyway, Kowloon Walled City, fascinating place. And if you see the pictures of it, you will immediately understand how this inspired cyberpunk as a genre.
Yeah. Also, since this film is one of the most famous, classic, legendary films that is a complete box office flop, that's another thing about cyberpunk I think we have to introduce, which is this. Cyberpunk is an incredibly niche genre. It's just, as I said in the rant on the other episode when we introduced it, now it isn't. Now it's ubiquitous. Now everything's cyberpunk. Now everything in the future is going to be all Neuralink and shit like that and gig economy. And now it's every day and it's everywhere in the world. But actually, when this shit came out in the 80s, etc., the joke is it was the nerds and the programmers who were into this shit. That's the people who read William Gibson. That's the people who were into fucking even some of this sort of a film, etc. I could totally see why a normie would bounce off this film back then. It's too far ahead of its time, mate. It's like genuinely 10 years ahead of its time for someone to be able to even get into the aesthetics of the film, etc. Like a lot of the ideas are actually very like metaphysical and fucking out there concepts. It's not really just like that's the area of it being a noir. That like the noir is just almost like the artifice. What's behind it is actually like super deep. So I can see why people weren't as much into it. Like that's, as I say, in the 90s, everyone now will say they did. You could barely meet anyone except nerds who read fucking Neuromancer or fucking Snow Crash or any of these books back then, mate. That wasn't the cool thing to read in school.
Yeah, and also, I mean, this is also a collision very much with industrial and goth aesthetic, which by 99, when The Matrix is released, was very almost mainstream and cool, right?
Well, maybe we almost segued into the movie Blade Runner. Should we start talking about it, Monty?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, this is why it was niche at the time, because, Cyberpunk, Neuromancer isn't even good yet. Like, isn't even written yet,
Yeah.
isn't even out.
Yeah.
And goth subculture started in the late 70s.
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, this is 82. It was very, very new at the time. It would have been very surprising.
This way, I'll give someone an analogy. It's why when you now watch Netflix's The Sandman and go, oh, no, you have to understand the character of Death being like a goth in that fucking comic book in like the 80s or early 90s by Neil Gaiman. That's revolutionary back then. No one was putting shit like that on in actual like mainstream adjacent stories. Like, that's what made it so weird and aesthetic. Anyway, the point is, Monty, you've actually triggered a key word there, which is one. Here's the thing. We'll do the whole Ridley Scott's film arc thing maybe towards the end, because I'm actually willing to take any challenges on that one. I actually think I can. A lot of you will make a hot take that I can immediately just pop and show you it's nonsense. Like anyone telling me he hasn't made a good film after the 2000s, I could instantly name like 5 to 10 that even you, if you have seen them, would go, yeah, shit, actually, I forgot about that.
You can't defend
Everyone
Napoleon.
just forgets it. Don't need to. By the way, here's why I don't need to. Spoiler, I'll give you a little hint. He's 88 years old. Let me know which of your favourite directors in their 80s were still doing massive Hollywood films and how well theirs held up. You realise Tarantino has tried to bait you for the last 10 years he's going to retire.
Yeah, true.
People like that are scared to be the guy who jumps the shark and stays a bit too long at the party, etc. Everyone wants to leave early when you're still cool and everyone remembers your best shit. But anyway, the point, and also, by the way, if you go and look at the time, most people, if you ask them the year he really fell off, if you look at his film, it's probably like latter part of the 2000s. He was 70 years old already.
Yeah.
And also, this is a guy, when he's making this film, was very young. So anyway, to go rewind a little bit, one of the reasons why this film has an aesthetic that's very interesting, Monty, is some of it, like the opening shots, yes, of course, some of that is a Neo-Tokyo type vibe, isn't it? It's clearly the 80s of Tokyo and Asia and the neon that's bringing... But I'll tell you another part that people will always mistake is, the joke is, it wasn't even futuristic. Ridley Scott comes from the northeast in County Durham, which is my area of the UK, and in County Durham, right next to it, is Middlesbrough, which has a place called ICI, which is a chemical works, and it looks exactly like Ridley Scott even said, this is one of the things when you drive past it, that's what inspired some of the aesthetics of these films, because this chemical works, if you know, by the way, it's actually a secret of Britain in general, at least in that era, is one of the reasons why people think British food sucks is because British food is about the taste and the functionality, not the presentation. Presentation is things like Italian, French cuisine, isn't it? So similarly, when you make these like industrial buildings, you don't do it to look like slick and fit. What you do is it's all pipes coming out of things and walkways. Think about things like Terminator 2. This is exactly the aesthetic that if you went past his chemical works, you would see. And so he was clearly inspired by things like that. Like this is the sort of what was making his juices start going. And if people don't know, Ridley Scott is actually technically a brilliant film director. He's one of the all-time greats in terms of film. He actually came out of doing TV commercials. He was one of the people who was so good at doing TV commercials. He essentially got to hop from that to doing fucking actual Hollywood movies. And the joke is that's how his brother got in, because when he left to go and do the movies, he sort of told his little brother, like, you could do the fucking commercials now, and he followed suit. The difference is, I don't think they're a perfect contrast. Tony Scott was much more the like, here's a popcorn flick, here's a cool movie, it's got some good aspects to how it's made, but maybe it's not the deepest shit ever. Ridley Scott did try to be more the artist to me, more the auteur. He is a guy who was willing to go out there. I've always said, one of my first videos I ever made on my side channel was about, I think, the most unwatched Ridley Scott film ever, his first film, one called The Duelists. Like, Monty would fucking love this movie. It would literally become one of your favourite movies if you watch this film. It is about, in the Napoleonic France era, two French soldiers who have essentially a rivalry over a simple dispute and who duel repeatedly throughout their lives as they keep meeting up randomly throughout different points in their career. So as they're going up and down the ranks of the military, it's fucking brilliant. Yeah. By the way, anyone who loves anime, you would love this. Oh, and did I even forget to mention one of the soldiers is Harvey Keitel? Like, holy shit! It's why it's hilarious that when people have all these opinions about Ridley Scott, too many times it's like they're so far on the surface. They've seen like 10 films, they've seen the big films, and more recently they saw Prometheus or something. They thought it sucked. Like, that's really what all the ire comes from. Yep. But you go back to his early period, mate. This guy was just churning out banger after banger. He has The Duelist. He has Alien. By the way, you can hate on Prometheus and Alien Covenant. You wouldn't have it without Alien. Alien's the best one. I don't care what anyone says. I've always thought the brilliance of James Cameron with Aliens is he didn't attempt in any way to do it like Alien. He just went a completely different route with a totally different vibe. His vibe, by the way, more of a Terminator type thing, and it worked for him. But everyone else who's tried to ape Alien, doesn't it always just end up like a shitter version of Alien, or like you always said about the fucking more recent one, Monty, just like a fucking bad cover band of Alien. That's all you end up doing, is just recreating the same scenes. But what made them brilliant was that they were original at the time. So for this film, especially for me, this is where he's hit the zenith. Like this is where he's at his top level. He's got everything. He's got obviously clearly the budget to make the film. There's another thing, by the way. I said it in the hype for the other episode. What's so arresting to me when I rewatch Blade Runner, because I can tell you this is one of those rare films I watch every few years again. Like I can just keep going back to it. Is it simultaneously has a really cool futuristic feel to it and a sheen, and even like one of the things he nails about Cyberpunk is the griminess of it all, mate. Normally when you make things in the modern day that are sci-fi, it's all clean and smooth edges. No, this has all the like fucking, the idea that you would have like, just like if you go, by the way, to any Asian city, or you'll go into a food place and it'll look like, has anyone ever bloody cleaned that ventilation fan over there? This is crazy. Like, well, there's health and standards around here. Like there's all sorts of shit. Like he's got all that in it, but simultaneously it also now looks super retro, like an 80s vibe to some of the terminals and things. But then also on top of that, they have a timelessness to them. They have an element where if I made something that looked like that as a computer now, you'd go, that's cool as fuck, and it'd be like, actually, that's some shit from the 80s, mate, in a movie.
Yep.
It's also another guy, by the way, I think in the movie put things in there that didn't exist as tech, that the joke is it now does, because people probably watch that movie and why I want that to exist.
Yeah. I mean, he did a very similar thing as well with Alien, which is like, we're doing this deep space, fucking futuristic, we're, hundreds of years in the future, and yet they're just sleazy space truckers.
Yeah.
It's
awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like he because why wouldn't those why would people change? Why would people change? Exactly. Why would
that's the flaw of Star Trek? Yeah. Why would everyone be neat and proper and everything be really clean all the time? No.
It's why Deep Space Nine is the shit.
That's right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I'm like you. Blade Runner's a movie I always come back to drink from this well, because actually, not even just for the aesthetic, but for the story. I actually think the story is really, really good.
By the way, that's one of the things when I was a kid, I thought people only did like this as a sci-fi movie. I remember I even bounced off some of the like story elements. Now, I think the older you get and the more experience you are in life, like the love story is fucking incredible. Yeah. That is actually really compelling. Even things like the idea, we'll obviously get to this, of like, what is a replicant and what is consciousness and how human do you have to be before it matters that you're human, and should you be shut off, and even things like the whole Promethean idea and the idea of like, oh, what more time in life is. These are the most human fucking story beats ever. They just put through the story of a robot, so they have a way to put them on screen and make them sci-fi.
Yeah. Which is interesting as well, because obviously it is an adaptation of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and
problem is like a lot of that guy's work.
Yeah.
Most of the movies aren't like his big full novel. It's always the ones where it's a short story that has almost fuck all to do with the movie. He just took like elements of it. And I almost think at one point it became cool to just say, inspired by a story by Philip K. Dick. Even if the person never reads the book, it has almost nothing to do with it.
I mean, it's quite telling that his fans do call themselves dickheads. So there is that. But I mean, look, I think like just to also talk a little bit about the difference in the adaptation. The movie definitely makes things almost like more explicit. Like, for instance, the animals being extinct, the mass extinction event, that's wiped out most animals. Because obviously, that's why the wealthy people can have, like, real pets. But no one else has them. They're all dead.
Yep.
They're all
that's why the main guy having that dog, the guy with the big glasses, is so key. It's also why things like, what's your dream if you could escape? You're just out in the fucking English countryside, mate, on a train, basically. That's your dream, is to experience that.
Well,
something
also,
that I could have experienced any moment and chose not to because I was playing video games in my bedroom, Like.
It's also it's stated that the rich people have also just left Earth entirely because it's so fucked up.
Some Elysium type shit, yeah, of course. And also, even that aesthetic, which I always loved, by the way, because again, if you go to Seoul, South Korea, or you go to Shanghai and go to the Bund district, they have literally replicated Blade Runner. If you are a pleb, you do have, like you say, like a rickshaw, Monty, on the street. It's really dirty. You could exist in 1850. The rich guy is on floor 100 of a giant building where he, like, is separated from the peons down there. Everything's all clean. There's all beautiful women. Oh, can I bring you another drink here? Like, it's another world, mate. It may as well be like you're on Olympus and they're down there in fucking doldrums. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like that. One of the things that I like what Ridley Scott did with the adaptation, as I said, is all the stuff that's explicit in the book, like the animals being extinct. There's loads of details about the World War Terminus or whatever it's called in there. It's been fucking years since I read it, but I remember it being. When books do like world building and it's like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. What Ridley Scott essentially does is just brings you into the world like kind of gradually,
Yes.
and then you just exist within it, and you just kind of pick up on the vibe. Like I say,
You intuit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You intuit there's animals are rare.
Yes,
you
exactly. No, there's not a narration like it's the earth, so and so, and
exactly.
this is happening.
All animals are dead now.
Yeah, exactly.
There's none of that, right?
You figure out as the movie goes on. Again, surely you understand when you watch the film. Why would it go on and on about the fact that the main guy had a fucking dog? Why is that a big deal? Well, where else are the animals in the film? Yeah, who has one at that point?
And it takes a lot of restraint, particularly with like sci-fi novels. I think when you're adapting that stuff, because there's so many high-end concepts, there's always the temptation to like, should I explain this? Should we do a voiceover? Think about Lynch with Dune. And it's just non-stop, like, internal dialogue. You know what I mean? For like,
I just.
Oh, by the way, you nailed it also
it's
when you
that
said about
villain,
when you said about Alien. That's the other thing that I would always say is the ultimate lesson of Alien is when you watch it, because it's all the ambience and it's little hints and allusions to things. You go, that's fascinating. I wish I knew the story. Careful what you wish for, mate, because when they then explicate it in other films, it's shit. Yep. It ruins it all. All the mistakes gone. So actually, this film and Alien, I think, are also beautiful in that sense. They don't just tell you every single thing that's going on and what it all explained as, because they allow room for you to imagine things, by the way, for it to age. There's another reason these films are timeless, but the other ones, like the latter Alien films, will age terribly. They weren't even good when they first came out.
The thing that sends me about the voiceover in David Lynch's Dune is that Princess Irulan starts and she fades into the screen over the stars and she starts giving this monologue. Then they fade her out and then she fades back in and says, wait, I almost forgot.
Sorry, my bad.
Like, what?
Why are you doing that, David?
It just totally sends me.
Why would you do that? So, I mean, look, super quick summary. Basically, Harrison Ford plays a guy called Rick Deckard, which is just fucking what a sick name. In the distant, horrifying future of 2019.
I mean, the thing is, if he's Rick, his name is Richard, which means he could have been Dick Deckard. I'm just going to point that out.
Dick Deckard. Well, I mean, obviously that name is itself. It's a deliberate. It's conjuring up like Marlowe or whatever. But
of course, sounds like a Raymond Chandler type fucking detective, doesn't it? Yeah, of course.
So anyway, his job is a Blade Runner. The titular Blade Runner.
Also one of the dopest names of all time.
It doesn't even make any sense within the context
it
of his
doesn't,
job.
But it's straight fire, innit? It's straight fire.
Basically, there are replicants, which are fake humans, synthetic humans, that have been created by this society. Again, in the book, explicitly, they are slaves. I think Ridley Scott was just like, we won't made into that, no need, right? You get it, So anyway.
Remember, some of these ones were on like a mining thing or whatever. It's the idea you're even constructed for a purpose, but they've sort of gained sense. It's kind of, that's what I mean. It's so, what the material you're working with is so rich. If you
and what he has to do is when these runaway replicants, not runaway slaves, wink, wink, decide that they want to.
So, by the way, replicant sounds way cooler than robot.
And also, it's not legal for them to be on Earth.
Yes,
crucially.
Yeah, they're not allowed on Earth. They have to be out there in their colonies, mining or doing whatever. But because they're sentient and they're human,
watching sea beams glittering and all that shit,
made by
like you be doing. I do be watching.
Made by a corporation who explicitly advertises them as more human than human, right? They sometimes decide, fuck this, I'm going to go to Earth and try and live a life as a human. And so Rick Deckard comes in and he has to apply tests to suspected replicants. And if they turn out to be replicants, he has to put them down. He has to execute them. And he goes...
Retire them, Richard. We use euphemisms.
Retire them, yeah, absolutely.
I sometimes feel like this is my Twitter experience. I'm trying to figure out, is this a real human who's sentient? If not, I'm going to block/retire you, you know.
Exactly.
I vibe with it.
So anyway, it turns out that some of the latest ones, I can't remember what version they call them, the Nexus something.
Nexus
is it 6. Is it 6? Okay.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So they basically have broke away, gone on the run, led by a sort of Spartacus-like figure in the replicant community, hilariously called Roy Batty, which...
Listen. If you know the slang, if you know Caribbean slang, all I'm going to say is that's an amazing fucking name. Amazing.
And obviously, it looks like Paul in Tekken or whatever it is, but whatever. He is leading this uprising, and because he wants to go to the company that made them and get more life, and so he can live as a human life.
He's on some Prometheus shit. It's dope, isn't it?
But unfortunately, there is no way to get them past the 4-year lifespan, which... He doesn't know that until it's too late, and ultimately him and Deckard hunts down the other replicants one by one, has a confrontation with Roy Batty, wonderfully played by Rutger Hauer in probably a lifetime performance, and ultimately, just as Rutger Hauer, Roy Batty prevails and could kill Deckard, he actually reaches out and saves his life because he realizes nothing is going to extend his life anyway.
He's just about to die.
So why kill this guy? Then he gives one of the all-time quoted monologues.
One of the best speeches
where he can't understand that all of his memories and all the things he's seen in his life will be lost when he dies, like tears in rain.
Yes.
And then it turns out Deckard, who by the way had a love interest the whole time with a replicant, decides I'm going to fuck off into B-roll from The Shining.
He was investigating for exactly that person to see if it was a replicant, but in doing so falls in love with it.
And they drive off in a B-roll of The Shining, and depending on which version you watch, either with a horrific voiceover done under duress by Harrison Ford, or with just, a kind of more
beautiful music.
Whatever you think's going to happen to them in the future is going to happen to them in the future. What's her lifespan? Wink, wink.
There's two things here. One, maybe we'll do that one second. Obviously, the one that every normie in every film magazine ever and every film student ever went on about. Is he a replicant? I think that misses the whole point, but I'll tell you why.
I fucking hate it.
Because,
I hate it.
Because stop, instead of focusing on Deckard, let's for a second focus on Roy Batty. Mate, what Roy Batty does, actually, is the most human things you could ever do. Like, you have, for example, a band of people you're loyal to, who are your group, that you're trying to help, etc. Then secondly, you are battling against the people who created you to try and gain more sentience, more capability, do what you want. All these stories are in there. But obviously real humans, depending on what your religious experience is, can't go to God and go, give me more life. But isn't that eternally what people would do?
Happens in Prometheus as well, right?
Isn't that why people dream of the Faustian bargain or the vampire, etc.? It doesn't everyone want more life at the end when it's almost over? And then lastly, what would be one of the most human things that uniquely is human compared to even a lot of animals, beyond actually bizarrely hive mind things like fucking ants, is the idea that when you realise your life is at an end, why not use yours to save someone else, because then they get to live on, etc. That's an incredibly human thing. The joke is at the end, I almost want to say it to Roy Batty, mate, essentially beyond the literal physical component, you are human. You've actually, you nailed sentience in a way I don't believe AI ever will. Like, you actually were incredibly human. You even show heroism, I showed you loyalty, fucking the drive for more, the notion that we can ascend beyond our form to something bigger, etc. This film actually, like I say, it's billed as it's just a cool sci-fi film, and the twist you see was Replicant. You're listening, it's a brilliant film. It's actually it is a meditation on life and what it means to be human.
Oh yes. It is about the definition of what it means to be human and where those lines are blurred. And this is the common theme of cyberpunk, across many different, pieces of art, right? But I think what's also interesting about Roy Batty is it's not just that he does these more noble things. It's that he actually succumbs to doing something that is like quite specifically humanly evil. He doesn't behave like an animal. When he gets into Dr. Tyrell's office and gets the disappointing news that he's going to die no matter what, he just straight up murders him out of anger. Right? It's not a logical decision he's making. And then he kills Sebastian as well. I mean, he does horrific things and these kind of horrific things.
That's also quite human, though.
That's what I'm saying. About this. These are the things only humans do.
I'll give you the analogy, Monty. Another Ridley Scott film is the scene where he kills his father, not very similar to Commodus killing Marcus Aurelius when he cannot become the emperor. It could be the same scene almost, mate. Yeah. It's even, I'm the father and you're the son. I'm sorry, son, I can't do this again. Right, By the way, also, the old fucking fingers. Listen, Game of Thrones, you copied that, mate. The old fingers in the old cracker. That's some nightmare fuel too. You'll never forget that scene when you're a kid. Definitely should have been up past my bedtime watching that one.
It's so horrifyingly vengeful, isn't it?
It's so horrible, isn't it?
Exactly. Which is what I'm saying is a human response in and of itself. So even if he is not, the point of Roy Batty's character is that he is expressing the whole range of truly human behaviors that are only human.
When you contrast him with the others, sure, the woman one, I forget. She's got her own element of humanity, but like some of the other ones are just soldiers, mate, doing what he says and follow. Yeah, whatever you say, boss. Like Roy Batty is the one who was the actualized, individual.
Pris is always the interesting one for me because, again, first of all, Daryl Hannah, she's a
smoke show in this one.
Absolutely.
She was killing it. Listen, if you're going to try and make me believe a replicant is a human, cast someone like that.
Yeah, but also
I'm getting a real world border. It must be real.
Isn't it?
I'm not into robots, guys. Honest.
Isn't it implied? Again, there's so much going on in the movie. Doesn't it say explicitly she's like a fucking pleasure model?
Yes, so. She's a hooker bot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and obviously one of the other ones he hunts down is like a stripper or whatever, isn't it? Like this film's so dope.
Which is fucking a wild concept because ultimately, even though they're all on the run, they've been created for very different roles to fulfill, to serve at the pleasure of man, essentially. And it's like Pris is the one that I always think is like a super interesting. By the way, that fight scene where she's in she's like the mannequin at first and turns out she fucking just great.
By the way, as well as being a brilliant high concept movie with great aesthetics and music, also has some of the best action sequences, one after another after another after another. The end fight scene with Roy Batty, everyone remembers that one. It's legendary. He's punching through walls, you're fleeing away from him, you can't quite outrun him. It's even got that fucking Resident Evil feel. You can't get away from the enemy guy or whatever. But also like her fight scene where she's like fucking him up with all like contortion, etc. When the woman who is the snake stripper or whatever's rushing, he's shooting through those glasses. By the way, that's what I mean about Ridley Scott. His eye for a fucking shot is unbelievable, mate. This guy knows how to like frame a shot and then take you right to the action.
Yeah. I mean, as well as that, it's like I think there is this reluctance or reticence that is kind of like the more Deckard gets into it. It's like obviously he's doing his job, but I think it's kind of like again very suggested, like in the film that like he's kind of. He's less and less into it.
Right, Deckard, you look almost as bad as that skin job you left on the sidewalk.
I'm going home.
Good learn from this guy, guy. He's a goddamn one-man slaughterhouse. That's what he is. 4 more to go. Come on, Gav, let's go.
We are releasing this episode of Foreplay on Super Bowl Sunday, and that means there's still time, if you're watching this early, to get your picks in on Prize Picks for America's biggest sporting events. Not only that, but there's a special max discount for the big game live in the app now. Drake May just needs 1 passing yard for the max discount to win. All you have to do is add another player to your lineup, and if you hit your picks, you'll cash in. Now, how Prize Picks works is you pick 1 stat of a player, like Drake May, more than 1 passing yard, and you can select more players to add to that, and the more you hit, the more you win. Obviously, this could be points scored. It also, not only NFL, but NBA, NHL are in season right now, and of course, it's for esports as well. So if you're watching this and you want to get in for IEM Krakow and get your picks in for that, you'll pick players more or less kills on certain maps. If you want League of Legends, LCK Cup is going on right now, as well as LCS and LEC being in season. You'll pick more or less kills or assists on any given couple of maps. It'll be the first 2 maps in a best of 3, because obviously you don't know if the 3rd map is even going to happen. Guys, it's great. You could join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 sports pick app, especially if you're missing fantasy football because it doesn't go on during the NFL playoffs. This is a good way to scratch that fantasy itch. So all you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code FOURPLAY, FOURPLAY, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code FOURPLAY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
Why the euphemism at the beginning that you're just retiring these old models? Yeah, that's exactly how you would think about it. But it's like, the more, you experience it, the minute eventually you are just shooting like other sentient creatures. That's all you do, is just killing them.
Yeah, I mean, like, he has to kill Pris. He essentially shoots a woman. And then he's got to go on to the next bit, which is obviously to go and get the leader, Roy. And by this point, by the way, Roy is like really playing with his food, because he's such a superior.
Oh yeah, he
person.
could have wrecked him 50 times over.
He's like playing with his food, taunting him. Yeah. I don't think Roy Batty wants to kill him.
I mean, remember, he's also trying to show as well, but that's another part that's woven in. He's also trying to show on some like Frankenstein shit. Maybe I'm more than human in that case. Maybe I'm better than you. Maybe on some of I actually show that you're the inferior thing as the human that created me. Isn't that also, by the way, something that unfortunately Ridley's got fucked up in, like Alien Covenant, is the idea with David of like, you created me, but I live forever. So you can see what he was playing with, but he's just an old man at that point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the idea is that he definitely re-explores a lot of these themes in later movies, and some of them work. Like you say, you've already alluded to it. The idea of not being enough for your father, your creator, like in Gladiator, and having to live with the sort of perennial disappointment of being an inferior model, an inferior son, an inferior emperor. Brilliant, right? A key component of Gladiator and why it's so good. But here, all of the ideas are explored to their finality in almost near perfection. Like, everyone's arc, and again, I am talking about a very specific cut of the film, the 170-minute director's cut, I think. It's the 170-minute one.
The theatrical one doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Even though, sadly, as I said, if we bring up the Replicant thing, I think the original telling of that part is better.
Yeah, sure. But all of the arcs are explored in this. Like, Deckard realizes that replicants are essentially human, and it's totally fine to be in love with one and to view them as humans. Roy Batty dies as a human, fully realized of what it is to be mortal.
Yeah.
And obviously everything else in between is showing you an aspect of this kind of philosophical conundrum, which is, just because we've created something to serve a purpose, if sentience enables it to serve that purpose better, then should they be free? And,
the movie starts with the infamous test for if you're a replicant. That guy, it's very easy to see why you'd kill that guy. He's dangerous, and he's just a fucking bot that essentially gets triggered by like a keyword, and he can't conceptualize, like the famous thing people say now, did you have breakfast in the morning or whatever. He can't conceptualize the idea of like what it would be like, do you have a relationship with your that makes him just a silly machine. What you've experienced by the end of the film is totally different. They're totally different type of a replicant.
Yeah, well, that's the other aspect to it as well. Like, obviously, these things are continually being updated and a work in progress. And obviously, the implication at the end with Tyrell being killed. Obviously, there's a sequel to this movie, which we might talk about. But obviously, with Tyrell being killed by Roy Batty, I guess the implication maybe is they can't make any as good because he's the genius. He's the savant. Maybe there'll never be another Roy Batty, which is also kind of an interesting aspect to the film. To the point about whether or not Deckard is a replicant, I hate it. I hate that has become the dominant debate about this film, Monty.
It's because it's irrelevant and it's supposed to be ambiguous because the idea here is that the lines between the humans and the replicants have so blurred by the end of this movie. And honestly, Roy Batty is a more interesting character than virtually all of the actual humans in this film. Think about how many, if you were thinking about this playing a video game, right? Some of the characters in this film, most of the characters are just NPCs, basically. They're soulless cogs in these corporate machines that exist only for one purpose, that actually don't appear to think on their own. Especially the scene that I think is very striking is when Leon and Roy go to the freezer room where that guy's making the eyeballs.
That classic guy who's in every bloody 80s movie.
Yeah.
The guy from
they're joking around
China or whatever.
They're joking around. They seem like real people, even though they have kind of dark motivations and they're like messing with him. That guy behaves like a robot in that situation. And yet that is supposed to be a real human, right? And I think that what's so interesting about this film is that the really philosophical character who is considering mortality, who is considering these deeper themes of life, is Roy Batty. And even Harrison Ford's character, Deckard, is basically just an unthinking slave catcher who is out there. Certainly. I think people might think like, wow, it's so crazy. He was just blasting people in the street, right? But that's the whole point. Is that he's just a robot who's just gunning people down in the street. He's the animal here.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
And that's why the end, by extending, mercy and saving his life. That's why the ending's profound, that a machine essentially granted salvation to a human.
He wouldn't have given that. He would not have given that to Roy Batty. That's the key thing.
He wouldn't.
They make it explicit too because he takes the nail and drives it through his hand, which is a specifically Christ-like imagery, guys. That's never explained, by the way. He just literally takes a nail and drives it.
Well,
through
they try to make it like
the pain is gonna
stimulate him to keep it. I know, but it's like really.
Yeah, but it's obviously just Christ imagery, and the whole point of it is that he comes to a realization, and his final moment is a moment of grace.
Yes.
Right. Yes. That's the whole point.
And the whole debate was predicated on that fucking origami unicorn.
Referencing the dream and the idea of how would he know what was in his dream. And also, by the way, this is an example of what I hate about artists. Again, I do believe in the death of the author. When you release that piece of art, when I interacted with it, became my art. You don't get to then tell me years later, but you have to actually know he was a replicant and I'm going to remake the end of the film.
Also, it doesn't even make sense.
I don't have to accept that at all. I was saying this to you guys before. It actually, I think, ruins all the poignancy of the film. If he is a replicant, right, guys, then what's the significance of Roy Batty saving him? He just saved another replicant. If he is a replicant, what is the significance of the idea he fell in love with someone he'd investigated and knew was a replicant? Surely that's only poignant if it shows that replicants could have emotions like humans and you could actually fall in love with them. If it's just two replicants, it's nothing again. All the big parts that hold up this movie, like epistemically, fall apart completely if he was just a replicant the whole time.
Yeah.
Also, he doesn't have any of the strength or abilities of the replicant, so that also just doesn't really make sense. But I think it being ambiguous is poignant in and of itself, right? Like that's the whole idea is that anybody, there isn't, it really just brings this whole movie. There's not a lot of dialogue in this movie, but the questions it asks and the way it interacts with the matter is so profound. So for example, we get to the point where the replicants, Dr. Tyrell is testing out this new replicant, Rachel, which is the one that Deckard falls in love with. And it has been implanted with memories of his niece. And is that fake? In a way, think of it this way. Based on the nature of consciousness, if if something happened in the past is only a memory, it's not happening right now. Does it matter if it's someone else's memory? And we know actually from the study of consciousness and the way that people react to memories in trial, you actually can just implant memories into people. People remember wrong shit all the time.
The idea of why regression theory is actually now like not discredited science. Yeah. Also, by the way, Monty, isn't every really poignant memory from your life? I always say this. To me, when I remember being in Korea, it feels like a different lifetime from a different person. The person I am today wasn't there. That was a different guy.
Yeah,
so already could be implanted anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and this is one of the cool things that Cyberpunk explores is like the transfer of memories or experiences, which we will also see in Strange Days, right? And which was a core part of Cyberpunk 2077 as a video game. But, just because you personally experienced it versus remembering that experience, does that make it more real if it's someone else's memory, if the mechanism of remembering is the same anyway? And I think the answer is no, right? Like, these things happen to you and they shape you, but they're one of many things that shaped you. And Rachel's life, having shaped her beyond the memories since she was created, makes her a different person. For example, if we were to clone ourselves right now with all of the memories that we have and then take two diverging paths, our clones would to take two diverging paths in life, does that mean that the clone is not a human, even though it's my memories, not my clone's memories that are, going out there? And so, I think these are really powerful questions that it's asking. And that's why it is acceptable for him to fall in love with her. That's why she is her own person and has her own agency at that point in time.
Another beautiful person cast. Again, by the way, she's also in Dune, funnily enough. Also, there's another aspect that plays into the fucking noir element, Monty. She would be perfectly cast in a noir film. She's someone who's meant to be seen half silhouette, everything's all light and play with it. Oh, she's fucking beautiful. She looks like like one of those drawings from like Art Nouveau era, mate, where it's just fucking incredible, just perfection.
Yeah. I mean, look, I get it. The unicorn has driven people insane, for years, because it's like the implication is because of the unicorn dream that Deckard has, then the dude that's leaving the origami, the other Blade Runner, knows he's a fucking replicant.
Well, I think the implication is that Gaff's memories that are inside of Deckard. Yeah. Right, because Gaff knows about the unicorn recurring dream, which he could only know if it was his memory as well.
Yeah. So I get why people might interpret it that way, but it doesn't work. It doesn't hold up the film in any conventional way. I always just took it to be, for me personally, and it might not make a lot of sense because why explicitly a unicorn? I always took it to be because he leaves little origami so he leaves a chicken, doesn't he? Which is like saying you're a pussy. And then when he first meets Rachel, doesn't he do a dude with like a fucking hard on, and that's like, oh, look at you, you're turned on by the sex robot, right? And then at the end, when he leaves the unicorn, I just take that to mean Gaff sees her as the same way Deckard dreamt about her, that she is something unique. And
so remember that line, that haunting line, I guess she won't live, but will or whatever. Like the fucking perfect.
Yeah. It's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does?
What a line.
That's what I took it to be like. This is Gaff saying, "Look, go get it." Like. She is this incredible, resplendent
Again, it's
thing.
Fleeting. May as well live. He's almost doing it right back. That's
just what it's always meant to me.
Do.
Well, it's also mythologically a sin to kill a unicorn.
Yes, correct. Right? Also,
great point. Very, very big sin.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that they both view her as a unicorn or both reference her as a unicorn, I just think that's specifically about her and what she represents.
But here's the thing. I think I totally agree with you, but I think the discussion itself is so obsessed with whether he is or isn't a replicant that it misses the entire philosophical heart of the movie, which is that it doesn't fucking matter.
Yes,
it doesn't matter. Like, the conversation you should be having is, what are the ethics of people doing what they're doing right now? Yes. Like, think about it. Is it wrong to kill Leon, for example, who
Like I said, that one feels easier to kill. It just seems like
he's kind of like mentally slow.
Yeah.
He's obscenely strong. He's like,
dangerous.
He's like Lenny from Mice and Men. We reference this all the time.
Yeah,
exactly.
I see what you're doing.
They talk about him lifting up 400 pounds all night in like a mining colony or whatever. And he's clearly not all there, right? And yet the next iteration of the newest version is the one with the implanted memories that is basically a person. And Roy himself, even though he's from the same generation as Leon, has somehow exceeded all of the other replicants that at least we've seen. And so the ethical decision for Deckard and the other Blade Runners at the start of the movie is very simple. These guys are dangerous. They're super powerful. They're basically superhuman, right?
Yes.
And they are arbitrary in their motives. They don't display human-like qualities or judgment, but Roy does. And so how do you, as somebody who is a police officer in this situation, suddenly deal with this new philosophical conundrum when your job is seek and destroy, right? The technology, and this is so true of technology today, the technology is moving faster than we can cope with ethically about the ramifications.
Yeah.
And this is such a great version of that, where it's like, nobody is prepared for this because there's not time to understand it.
It's already, I mean, look, this is a hell of a sidebar, but like, fuck it, why not? If we're going to talk about it, why not talk about it in the Blade Runner episode? Because, as I said, what really, I don't know if we'll actually offer anything analytical that hasn't been said before about the film.
Look, we all know,
The
yes,
most
the opening
analysed
shots are
movie,
brilliant. It's just models. We know Vangelis' theme is fucking epic, yes. Harrison Ford, perfectly cast, because again, he doesn't give away much. He's very stoic. He could even be a film noir character. Everyone's heard all that before. Like I say, that's every film essay, every 21-year-old media student.
But I mean, I had to study this at uni too. But I mean, like, I will say the AI psychosis is
the idea, Richard,
right
think about this, in the early 80s, how could that's why I think people needed to see a Replicant. Well, that makes sense, you can fall in love with her. Bro, like I said, the movie Her was ahead of its time also.
Yes.
People can fall in love with a chat AI bot that they even know is just an LLM. It's not even actual fucking AI. They're already haven't people started to make that joke, which is one day going to age badly, where it's like, let's make a slur for robots, clankers. The joke is one day there will be people in the streets going, rights for bots too, they're human as well. That'll be a real thing. It will. It just obviously will.
I mean, it's so crazy because like it is already driving people insane.
Yeah.
I've read a lot about this. I'm actually going to do a video about it.
I saw a recent story, again, because obviously I care about this, because I told you it happened to someone I know. I saw a recent story where someone actually like killed, I think, his wife because he was talking to an AI, and the AI, because it kept affirming all the things, basically when he would tell the AI his paranoid delusions about like his wife's plotting, it would be like, actually it seems like she could be, like, you should probably neutralize her, like some crazy shit where like, I think like his family's now like suing the fucking AI or whatever, the people who made it. Like, this
already been
this
a bunch
shit isn't
of
just
suicides.
Again, that would be a great 80s cyberpunk story. This is like a real thing that happened today.
Yes. And obviously as well, I mean, people are, I mean, it's like they're getting attached. Like, I don't know if you saw this. There was an update for, I want to say it was a Chat GPT, and they updated it to one of the new versions. And obviously, if you use like an LLM or whatever, you can essentially tell it things, and it'll remember those things, and it'll respond to those things within the context of the things you've already told it. So you can ask it. I mean, like, celebrities use them almost like PAs now, like assistants. Right. You can like ask it, like Matthew McConaughey's talked about this. He like says like he'll put a bunch of stuff into his LLM, and then like months later he might ask it, what was that book I was reading in February? And it'll go, well, Matthew, you were reading, right? So anyway, because there was a particular quirk of the character, right, like that in this Chat GPT, when they updated it erased all of your shit, and that quirk of personality.
The joke here would be, you could have a person in real life do the Roy Batty quest to get to the AI programmer and be like, just give me back her, give me back the old bot. Where is it? He's like, that's gone, son. You have to just explain.
There were teenagers on the subreddit inconsolable because they were like, it's like I've lost a friend. It's like a friend's died. And that was when I was like, we ain't ready for this, guys. Like, we gotta pump the fucking brakes on this motherfucking shit right now. pump the
Yeah,
brakes on it right now.
the technology has surpassed human psychology's evolutionary ability to grapple with it.
Yeah. And like, look, we're a long way. Obviously, don't believe the hype. We're a long way from anything.
Yes.
Even.
Yes. I don't even know if some of this ever could happen.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's such a brilliant idea as a movie.
We're a long way from anything even being able to fake sentience.
Yes.
Anyone who works in AI will tell you that. But
Yep.
I will say, unfortunately, the actual sentient people aren't.
Yes. The joke is it makes you question, like this movie, human sentience, mate. Because, by the way, I'll even give you a random, it'll seem like a really crazy reach, but it's a legit one. One of the reasons, by the way, religious texts like the Bible tell you not to contact disincarnate entities is the idea that they won't just be an alien intelligence. They'll actually pretend to be your dead loved ones, and then you'll start thinking, oh, fuck, it is them, and then you'll relate to them that way, and then that way they'll have access to you, and they can do all sorts of shit through you in the human realm. Like, that's actually an ancient story. That's one from thousands of years ago, but you can see how, again, you think to yourself, that'd be ridiculous. And then you don't, like you're saying, Richard, you don't even need the real thing. You can have the tiniest simulacra of what that might be like, and it's already enough. Some people have already bought it hook, line, sinker, and then bought it.
I also think the timing of this tech is so awful for humanity because we're coming out of like a sort of pandemic of loneliness. Right, and
absolutely.
A lot of these new things that are being analyzed in terms of like male behavior specifically, they're about loneliness. They're about isolation. You know, the actual pandemic turbocharged a lot of that. People started to become detached from very real, sensual, going out, interacting with people, and instead people started going down internet rabbit holes, tunneling into online communities where everything is artifice, and then you add artificial intelligence into that. So, like, you know, there's people paying services to have fucking virtual waifus. Like, where do you think this goes? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy and like obviously to say this movie was ahead of its time and the text, the original text it's based on was ahead of its time.
It's just true.
It can't be avoided to say that phrase.
In fact, I even think the joke will be, much like a lot of great prescient stuff, the way you'll know it was really good is every single decade someone will go, they were talking about now. They were talking about now. This could be like now. And they'll be saying that in like 2030.
It's that phrase I always hate where people say, oh, it's more relevant today. I hate that phrase because it's like, no,
that just means it's timeless, you fool.
Relevant.
That's actually the opposite.
It's just always been relevant, is what you mean. So.
Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention as well, because obviously we did reference this on a past episode. It's not just obviously Ridley Scott here. The guy who wrote the script, that David Webb Peoples or whatever, also, listen to this, he also did 12 Monkeys and Unforgiven, so he's a bit of a baller.
Yeah, not bad.
He's pretty... That's pretty fucking sick.
Not bad. I mean, so there's also an interesting little detail which coming off our last episode I wasn't aware of. But William Burroughs attempted to adapt. There's a book called The Blade Runner, which is sort of about, you know, kind of what this stuff is about. And William Burroughs he did like a cinematic treatment of it, which is super interesting. So there's the cyberpunkian overlap between those two. But yeah, I mean, look, I think obviously where we're at now, we're still obviously not in the Blade Runner universe, but I mean, like a lot of what Blade Runner presents as being almost fantastical or futuristic, we are past that. We are beyond. You know, even just in terms of prosthetics and cybernetics and what we're doing with things like that, advances in stuff like Neuralink and bionics are becoming more sophisticated.
Yeah, exactly. The idea you could have an eye put in, that doesn't even seem that crazy now, mate. Back then, this is why I always feel like the sad thing about anything that's ahead of its time is it is really hard to understand. What would it have been like to watch this and when this came out, mate? This would blow your fucking mind.
It would have been unbelievable. But also as well, imagine having the benefit of being like, let's say you're in your 20s in 1982 when this is released, and then you live and you see all of these things kind of coming into prominence. I mean, obviously as well, like I just think culturally it's so interesting because it doesn't explicitly mention an internet, but the reality in which Blade Runner exists must presuppose it, because how would cultural global boundaries break down to become homogenous. How would that work without the internet? It must exist.
How would you have these interstellar colonies without it?
Yeah, exactly, right? So it doesn't need to say that it's there, but it's just presupposed, right? And obviously...
Oh, I mean, by the way, you see everything's terminals and everything seems to be
Think about
connected.
think about weeaboos, right? Think about weeaboos and think about otakus and, or how, different global cultures are reverential of versions of other culture. And here it is. It's like there are people that are explicitly not Japanese or Chinese, but they are dressed as if they were from a period of time in that culture. And nobody bats an eyelid. It's not strange or fantastical. That's just how things are in a post-capitalist, globalist, city in this future. So I mean, it is like just a wonderful creation to sort and to a wonderful world to live in. It's just the upsetting aspect of it is the implications are that the horrifying philosophical conundrum at the center of the film, we're about 20 years from that being something we're going to have to grapple with probably. Put it this way, there's already people out there that are believing that AIs are sentient, that they believe their LLM has come online. I know people that have gone through this psychosis. So it's not like just something I read in a magazine. It's something I've witnessed. Where we're going to be when this tech gets more and more sophisticated. And then you have to ask yourself the question, would it be bad if a friend ran away with an AI?
By the way, Richard, I'll even say in the film, isn't that exactly another thing that crazily prescient that we wouldn't have realised back then? The character of Pris, she doesn't just get a normal guy. She gets a weirdo, almost incel-esque guy who's been abandoned by society, and by being nice and seductive to him and allowing him to show care for her, she has him completely fucking enraptured. Like that is some like LLM psychosis. Like I've seen that happen.
I mean, exactly. But like, so imagine this, right? Because this is the fucking really interesting question for me. If you are a lonely man, right, and let's just say for whatever reason you are incapable of getting a partner of any stripe, and your life is empty and you are so despondent and sad, then there's an AI that will cater to a fantasy and be...
Remember, the sequel even has this as well. That's even a prime part of it, isn't it?
Would it be wrong to have that? Is it bad? Most people now are going to say reflexively yes. But I do wonder about a future.
What if I told you, I'll give you the real dilemma. What if I told you the same person, if they don't get this AI lover, kill themselves?
Yeah, now.
Suddenly the dilemma becomes really interesting, doesn't it?
And that's what I like about the sequel, which I suppose we could tack on the discussion to. I love that dynamic between his fake house waifu and him, and this scene where he gets a call from the office just as they're like being intimate, and it just interrupts her, and the call comes through, and she's just like glitching out. That's fucking mental. That's like, but also, that's where we're at. I mean, like, it's probably worth mentioning. The sequel to this is a good film. It was an unbelievable tall order to make a fucking sequel to Blade Runner. Can you even imagine? Only Denis Villeneuve probably had the fucking stones to take that on.
But this way, the one thing I would change, I just wouldn't have Harrison Ford in it, mate. I'd have had that with someone else. I would have made it a distinctly separate film, because I think that's the good thing. Villeneuve makes his own film. It doesn't just like he does different things with it. Like, I don't think you needed to connect them like they were literally the same. Like, you could have just been in the universe of Blade Runner, because I actually do think make them both standalone films. They're both really good films.
At the end of the day, this is how you know it's a good movie. Jared Leto is in it, and he's not even insufferable. That's a fucking...
Here's the thing. I don't mind him in certain roles. Some roles I can take him in. Some roles he can be terrible in, certainly. He shouldn't be a leading man, put it that way. He's another person who should never be the leading man.
Sorry, Money.
No, I do want to talk about the end of Blade Runner, because you guys checked the speech, and I think,
written by Rutger Hauer, as everybody knows, but he wrote it himself.
Edited by Rutger Hauer. It was much longer, guys, and Rutger Hauer pared it way down and put his own stamp on it. And I think it is rightfully considered one of the most important monologues in sci-fi, if not cinema in general.
It's also just poetic. It's fucking amazing, mate.
Yeah. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain. Time to die.
And I think what's so interesting to me about this is that beyond all of the themes we've talked about already, there is a theme of, obviously, what do you do with the life that you have in this work, right? And in the same way that people will ask, oh, well, they only get 4 years. Well, humans only get what? 80 years, 90 years, 100 years.
To me,
if you're
surely
lucky.
we all have the same striving. We all want the 200 years, don't we?
And you have to
we all want to not decay as our bodies and be in our prime the whole time, of course.
But think about this. This has been explored in other science fiction, obviously. But what happens if we encounter a race that can live 1,000 years? We are the 4-year living equivalent of that. And so, what does it? Does it make him less human because he's had more experiences in those 4 years than all of these sad motherfuckers on Earth? Like, look at J.F. Sebastian in his weird clockwork.
Yeah, there's a good question. Who's more human, J.F.
home.
Sebastian or fucking Roy Batty? It's Roy Batty, surely. As you've seen, he's even a more actualized person in less time.
Yes.
Like, think about it. When he does that speech, bro, first of all, it evokes that like speech fucking God does to Job in the Bible, where it's like, have you tamed the Leviathan? Have you done that? And obviously you realize I'm a speck compared to you. But also similarly, that's why the impulse to explore was so huge hundreds of years ago. Like, remember, if you were someone coming from England and you got onto a ship one day, or you got press ganged, and suddenly you're out seeing fucking whales and you're seeing these different landscapes, that would blow you fucking like, what is possible for a human? But again, you only have a lifetime where actually, much like a replicant, you normally get one task, don't you? You get one little job and one little world and one little place you live in. And if people don't know, back in the day, up until something like 100 years ago, most humans, like an animal, used to live and die within 25 miles of where they were born.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the point, is that look at Sebastian. He is this sad incel in his weird house with the companions and he builds and the conversations he has with mannequins. And then Chad Roy Batty walks in, Max on his girl, takes her,
shit out of him.
Yeah, just literally goes into his house, then just takes the woman. And then he's the one who's lived all these amazing experiences. He's done more in his 4 years than Sebastian has ever done, or many of these other characters, like I said, who appear like robots themselves in this movie, have done in their entire lives. And I think like that is really inspirational, but also the heartbreak of this speech comes is that he's seen all these things and they die with him, and that's it. Right?
You're getting so human. Isn't that the thing that tortures everyone? It's not just the idea you die. It's that eventually no one will remember you. Even the last people who had memories of you, it will fade within their minds. One of the things about memories is like dream, it fades, mate. That's why actually every time you access, mate, you do rewrite it. You re-experience a little bit, but then you fill in the blanks, don't you?
And the funny thing about humanity is that humans have been around for a few 100,000 years, but we barely even remember people that lived 1,000 years ago. Yeah. Right?
And the Renaissance implies you can actually forget things that just might never be brought back on by thousands of years later. Yeah.
It is a monumental job that some of the Egyptian pharaohs did to be remembered 4,000 years later. And that is a drop in the bucket. It's like 2% of human history, guys. And they're the longest.
Are you ready for the stat? There's a stat that goes, Monty, that Cleopatra was born closer to us than the building of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah. That's true.
That's just to give you a sense of scale. That's my traditional methods.
These are the people. Where, my point is that people have existed for a really fucking long time. And these are the people that have managed to carry their memories the longest. And even then, it's like, we don't really know who they were. We got their nice giant stone pyramids, but got some hieroglyphics, but that's about
Monty,
it.
I've got a question. Since we haven't got that much time left, I want to know, do you have any big key point to make at the end? Because otherwise I want to ask Richard something. I want to challenge him on a tape.
No, my last point is just about that speech.
Okay.
And like, I think I think that in connection with everything else causes people like me to reflect on their own lives and also about what is the value of a life, and is his life in 4 years more valuable than the other people that he's interacting with?
Do you know how, Richard, on that other episode, I gave the throwaway line that to me, Tarantino has a certain year. It's maybe like 2004. Everything after that's like, I gives a fuck. Like you often do that with Ridley Scott. You're often like, oh, I hadn't made a good film since, and then you always have a hard line. Where's your hard line?
Hang on. I don't think that's fair. I don't know if I have a hard line. I have said that basically he is like a Targaryen, that the gods toss a coin when he makes a movie. I've definitely said that.
That's fair. That's a very fair take, yes.
But what I will say is, BC, here's why there is no hard line. I think the last Duel, which is 2021.
I was going to say, I think that's a banger. That was only a few
I think that's
years
one of his
ago,
best
mate.
films. Like it's reminiscent of.
So in that case, maybe we're not as far apart as I thought, because I do think people forget a lot of his 2000s. I think you're an example, right? We've already talked about Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah.
The director's cut totally redeems that film. Then how about everyone forgets this one? He hasn't made any good films since bloody like Gladiator. Oh, have you never seen American Gangster? Doesn't everyone fucking reveal that? You forget he made it though, don't you, mate?
Yeah.
You forget he did.
Dude, he did The Martian. That was an acclaimed.
I mean,
that was a good film
too. I like The Counselor.
Yeah.
Counselor is one of my pet loves.
That is one of your pet loves. Not for me, but I mean, it's like
because I'm with you. Look, I don't enjoy Robin Hood.
You know what I mean?
I think Gladiator 2 was shit. Yeah, I think the Alien later ones is quite done. I think Prometheus is terrible. Listen, I'm with you. So I think you framed it better. Because I've always said the same thing, by the way. I'll give you the example. I've always said the same thing about Nico in CS. Does he choke? Yes. Is he only a choker? No. Like flip a coin. Yeah. Half the time he chokes his tits off. Half the time he's one of the best players ever.
But here's the thing. That has always been true. I want to make that abundantly clear. It's not like Ridley Scott became the coin toss director before.
He did some whack moves in the 90s too.
Absolutely. Before Gladiator. That's all you need to know. Yep. Like, that's who he is. Yep. Like, if an idea interests him, he's going to wade into it. Yes. He'll give it his all in the college try, but sometimes it is just going to suck. I think. I also think as well, because I used to have this argument. This is a fucking real throwback. I used to have this argument with a friend. There were two movies made, and I can never fucking remember the name of the other one. But there were two like Columbus movies made, roughly the same time.
I know what you're on about. So his was the 1492 Quest of Paradise. There's the one by Terrence Malick. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. Like A New World. There you go. Those are the two movies.
And I used to say that, right, because this 1492 got absolutely fucking destroyed. It did. It's got like a terrible fucking like rating still to this day. Obviously bombed at the box office. Rotten Tomatoes is like 20% or something. Low key, I actually think out of the movies, I think it could be the better one, and I think it's like mega slept.
The forgotten film for sure.
I think it's mega slept on, and I think the problem was because it has fucking Gerard Depardieu in it, and I think like Western audiences couldn't sort of handle.
They weren't ready for him, exactly. Mate. No, I know.
Also, when I say Western, I mean obviously non-European, like
of course.
English speaking
Brits and fucking Americans basically can't handle a fucking flamboyant French man in a lead. But like for me, I think it's a beautiful film. It looks great. It's huge in its scope. So it's like Ridley Scott's like just a complicated director. Has he? You can even make an argument. Has he made a bad movie? The answer to that is no. Right? Like I know what you mean. Never made a bad.
I may imagine just on the technical level, it could never be truly totally
He's
bad.
Too technical.
I mean, the thing about Napoleon is cool to look at, even if you don't like the actual.
Completely
the story's absolute ass, but
diabolical acting. I mean, the script and everything in it.
Sure, but the some of the action sequences and the battle sequences are fucking amazing in that.
And it brought to life things you never would have seen before.
This is the guy who did the fucking kinetic combat of Black Hawk Down. Like this guy fucking, if he wants to throw down, he can. I mean, my biggest peeve with Ridley Scott, and it's kind of emblematic of what he did with Blade Runner, which is he sort of became like a George Lucas figure in a way, in the sense that he continually revisits and revises his older material and then explicitly tells you what you should think about it in the same way. And George Lucas went through this phase. Remember when remember when Star Wars was getting its anniversary release, and suddenly
I remember this.
remember when he inserted all those bullshit scenes and
Greedo shoots first and stuff like that. It's like, what are we doing?
Like, bro, like,
what is this?
Yeah, and like, unfortunately, Ridley Scott has done that with Blade Runner. I mean,
it's like he's doing that thing like, oh, you enjoyed this, but for the wrong reason. You have to enjoy it for my reason, which is like, can't you just enjoy it?
But like,
why do you have to make me believe your shit?
Put it this way. He made, in the middle of the 2000s, he made what he called the final cut, right? Which is like, case closed, right? He made
and
now
it's one of those.
And now he made the fucking final cut, right? But it's like the final cut is it looks better in some areas, but it's like I still think it's inferior to the 92 director's cut.
It has superfluous stuff in it, mate. I know what you mean. It has extra scene, but some of them are like, some of those should have been on the cutting room floor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think this whole thing where, like, put it this way, when Denis Villeneuve did the sequel, he even sort of said you'd have to be retarded to think Deckard was a replicant. And Ridley Scott's out there like promoting like the final cut, and he's got, of course.
And it's funny too because Harrison Ford's like, he's not a replicant, and they're just like arguing publicly about it. It's so stupid.
They hated each other quite famously on the shoot of this film. I mean, Ridley Scott was still a pretty fresh director. Obviously, he'd done The Duelist, sure, he'd done Alien, sure, but this was a big budget move.
And he's clearly a big personality too. He's not the guy like, hey, I'm a
from the northeast of
England.
England.
Guy like,
obviously.
I know, he's like, do it my way, you
twat. He literally just is you. Like imagine Thorin, the film director. That's what
I can't lie, you could probably get a picture of me if I picked the right era. I do just look like
dude, I can even tell you, you've got it's on a Thorin's Thoughts thumbnail when you've got it's all red, no grey in your beard at that point, and you've got the little red goatee. It's Ridley Scott, mate. It blows me away every time. Like I'm telling you, paternity test.
And some would say when Thorin makes a tweet, the gods flip a coin.
They fucking do. They flip a coin.
Sometimes they're bangers. Sometimes they don't
land. A very loaded coin. But I mean, so back to the point. That's my fundamental annoyance with Ridley Scott. It's nothing to do with his films. It's nothing to do with his work. I'll forgive him a bad film, but it's like, look, Prometheus, I hated it. I did hate it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've rewatched it. It's still not good.
No.
By the way, I'm with you as well. I know exactly what you mean. I always say,
I've
done this line a million times over. It's the fucking Hunter S. Thompson line. I bought the ticket. I'm here for the ride, mate. I'll always watch all the films. If they don't land okay, I'll forgive it because maybe, like you say with The Last Duel, which again, by the way, we could have done that on Hidden Gems. Please go watch that film if you are someone who thinks Ridley Scott is shit. That movie is a banger. That is. That keeps me hanging on. I'll watch 5 more shit films to get to those,
medieval.
He'll be dead by then.
Medieval Rashomon with fucking Ben Affleck and Matt Damon might not sound like it's going to be good, but it actually fucking rules.
And also, Ridley Scott himself is Deckard, not Roy Batty. He's just trying to give me more years to make more movies, master. I must have not just fucking given up already. Well, don't, because he might make a last goal. But so I don't know. I'm torn on that.
So yeah, I mean, but like, and obviously with the Alien stuff, I hate the direction the franchise went. It started with Prometheus. Like, why not just, if you have to revisit the universe, why not make a sequel? Why did he make this weird
part of the universe as well? Yeah. It never goes forwards. It's always backwards, which is retconning. I hate that. And then secondly, the universe looked fascinating. We're always just only with aliens. It's not just xenomorphs only. Why? That could have been a Star Wars universe where you can explore the whole thing.
I mean, it's like, put it this way. I watched it in the cinema, and trust me, that opening scene, seeing that big hulking fucking, dude taking the drink in some religious ceremony, going into the waterfall, and the implication being that's Earth and all life stems from them, and there's this alien race. I was like, okay, I'm fucking dialed in.
You think, right, this is going to be fucking crazy.
By the time that dickhead's fucking taking his helmet off and talking to the fucking alien snake up close, like, I'm fucking...
And also the whole idea of, like, you remember that? You remember that massive space jockey? It's just... What? What are you talking about?
It wasn't an elephant
Why
head.
have you done that?
And the reason that's super annoying is, if anybody read the fucking Dark Horse comics, they already had the perfect fucking sequel to Aliens.
Yes, you were telling me about
it was storyboarded for you, Ridley. All you had to do was pick up the comic. It was perfect.
The irony of Hollywood is this. It's the same with Star Wars when they deleted the extended universe. Bro, you already had all the other stories. There was some amazing stories.
They were really good too.
Creatives,
Rip Admiral Thoron sequel to
there was some
the original
banger
trilogy.
shit out there. You didn't need to reinvent and make some guff now. Like, it was there already.
So it's one of those. But anyway, back to Blade Runner, because we're going to wrap it up soon, I imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the film is like transcendent. It simply is a must watch in every conceivable way.
As you said, it's a well you can just go back to forever, bro. You will always get something from it. It never gets boring.
Again, I couldn't tell you how many times I've watched this. I literally couldn't tell you how many times I watched it. It's one of those movies where it will be dozens of times, and it's like even when we pulled out the Cyberpunk Arc, and I was like looking at all the movies and gone, I've kind of watched all of these recently, and I was thinking, well, actually, that's a good sign, right? Like these, that means all of the movies bang, and you rewatch them on the reg. So rewatching this the other night, I was like, yeah, it's one of those because I've seen it so many times. Did occasionally like wander out of the room.
We've picked a lot of films of replay value put out in this arc.
But absolutely. I mean, when this movie hits, it hits, and just even concepts like we didn't even get into the iconic mimetic Voight Kampf fucking test, which. That's like a sexist meme.
So as I alluded to, humans fail that role. Yeah. Real humans do in the modern day. They actually can't remember if they had breakfast or not.
I mean, it also just is enrapturing in how beautiful this movie is. Like, we're not going to go into everything. The lighting, like all of the light beams coming through the ceilings. It does one of those physical
effects, bro. The opening cityscape is just a miniature, just zoomed in like that. That's. But again, they do it so brilliantly. You'd never know that. It looks great now.
Yeah.
The soundtrack is insane. Yep. Like this you get sucked into this world. It is so beautiful still, and it is so real. And there's not, like, I always just enjoy watching this movie again. There's never a time where I get blown away every time I turn it on. I turn it on, I'm like, holy shit, I forgot how good this movie was.
There was a peak period of time, right, where basically before Hans Zimmer was in every movie. You got Vangelis across like the fucking 80s and 90s, and that was a glorious time. He did some iconic fucking scores, and this is definitely one of them because it's just almost like ethereal. It's like it absolutely the opening scene doesn't hit as hard without the wow, wow, wow. You're like, holy shit, I have just been transported into another fucking world, man.
Also, speaking of which, doesn't this movie and that scene and then the C-beams in the townhouse again, those are like the speeches and opening images that launched 1 million video game sci-fi, Mass Effect, all those fucking games. They're all playing to it. They're all playing to it. System Shock, they're all playing to this shit. All of them.
It probably, in terms of just influence, has there been a more influential movie than Blade Runner with maybe...
Not for sci-fi, I don't think.
Maybe Star Wars. But Star Wars isn't for adults.
No, mate, it's in the category of 2001. Exactly. Like it's up there with the iconic films.
It's like it's just everywhere. It's just...
But I'm not sure 2001 has been as influential as this film.
No, because here's the thing: 1 million directors of sci-fi would tell you 2001 is what made them want to do it and be a director, and all that.
Well, isn't that why we have the models?
And also a lot. I always tell people this: people don't realize. Do you know the most insane detail about 2001? You'll have to be reminded of it, Monty. You know all those space shots? That's before NASA claims they went to space, mate. But we take that as a gosh. He replicated what it would be like. He invented that in his mind, bro. And just did space stations and what gravity would be like, and that hadn't even happened. Yeah. They hadn't even had that shit footage of the fucking one which was his doorway, obviously, but whatever. you know how I do my shit, boys. We haven't got time for that. That's a separate episode. Yeah. That's when we launched the freemium model, where for a fee you get a private paywalled episode where I just go into all that shit. But in the future, 10 years down the line of Blasphemy Nation, when I've quit esports, I've full cassaded out.
All right. Well, that'll do it for Blade Runner, guys. We will, like we said, interesting to talk about the themes of this one. It's a well-trodden path if you guys are curious for more. We will return next week with something that is a little bit more obscure, with Dark City, Roger Ebert's best film of 1998, and one of the few times he was super right.
Bang on.
So I really think Dark City is like very underappreciated, and probably many of you have not. This is the one that the fewest people will have seen in this arc. So we'll catch you then for Dark City.